know, along those lines, this kind of leads into a question I wanted to talk to you about. You know, many years ago, we were talking before the interview, we were doing a film score session, and it was involving some students. I can't remember exactly all the particulars, but what I do remember about that session was the conductor wasn't particularly a strong conductor, a young person trying to learn their way in the realm of what they were doing, and they were getting on somebody. It wasn't you, and it wasn't me. I just remember, and you kind of just took the bull by the horns and said, "Look, you getting on this person is not going to make them play this any better, and they're clearly getting nervous." And you just had a way, I can't even remember all the things you said, but I remember going up to you after the session and saying, "Man, what you just said there was worth gold to all of us." Everybody in that room got something out of that. And I remember us having a conversation about nerves, and you know, I think I get nervous. I think everybody has a tendency to get nervous. I mean, I remember reading an article about Miles Davis saying how he gets nervous. He looks like a person who wouldn't have a nervous bone in his body, but he said he got nervous every time he played. So I'm wondering if you could share along the lines of what you were talking about, you know, how you have dealt with nerves over the years and anxiety. And I can't imagine a more stressful position than a principal wind position in a major symphony orchestra. But clearly we all deal with it if you're auditioning to get into Juilliard or New England Conservatory or whatever. But I know you have some good thoughts about that, and maybe you could share some of your ideas with us.
All right. Well, I hope my answers aren't going to, frankly, I hope my answer to this isn't going to disappoint you too much. But I mean, you know, there are a lot of things I can say about this. I mean, the first thing is that the better I know the piece of music I'm going to play, the much more calm I feel. And so I do a tremendous amount of pre-study of pieces. And I don't mean horn part. I mean I want to know, you know, I want to know if I'm looking at a forte in my part. Whether, you know, horn, trombone, the same thing. Most of the stuff we're playing is accompaniment to somebody else. So who am I accompanying? And for instance, if I'm accompanying a clarinet player, and it says forte in my part, well, to me that means it's forte in his part. If he plays forte, I can support that. If he doesn't play forte, I can't even pretend to play forte. That kind of thing. So if I know ahead of time exactly what my game plan is, that does a long way towards calming me. The second thing is this, and I've told this to every woman that I've ever gone out with. I cannot have a deep conversation about something a couple hours before I'm going to perform. You know, I've got to go out there on stage as much as possible with a blank slate, because basically, you know what I'm there for? To me, the most successful performance I can have is where I feel like a member of the audience. I happen to be playing, but I'm experiencing the music in the same way that they are. We're playing Bach Mass in B minor, and it's got a movement that's got a big horn part. That's not nearly the part of that piece I most enjoy. 2 movements before I play, there's a movement with 2 flutes and strings that just sends me over the edge. And you know, that just, so even when I'm playing, I want to feel that same way, as if I'm listening to what's going on as opposed to producing what's going on. And the more I can get into that head, the better off I am. Now, let's talk about when I can't. Let's talk about when I can't get in that head. Well, all right. You know, in 1988, I had a gallbladder operation. Couldn't play for 10 weeks. Because back in those days, they opened you. It wasn't where they went through a couple little holes that healed right away. No, they chopped you, boy. They made a foot-long incision and they cut right into your muscle wall. So they had to stitch that up, and you couldn't go like that for 10 weeks, right? I mean, you know, it had to heal, right? So I came back after 10 weeks, and I didn't know at the time what had gone wrong. This is 87, I said 80, yeah. But when I came back, I just simply got set on a mouthpiece somehow where my lips were way too far apart. And I didn't know it. So we go, I come back, and the first thing we're playing is Bruckner 4, and it doesn't really work too well to have your lips set too far apart for Bruckner 4, and Schoenberg Chamber Symphony No. 1. And we were taking them to Europe on tour. And we played them in the parks here a couple times, and I was killing these things, man. I mean, I was really bad. And Zubin called me, and he says, come on, man, you know, you just had an operation, you just came back. Let Jerome play. Let Ashby play him. I said, no, it's, you know, I said to him, I understand your concern, but I told him the same thing I had with that concerto. I said, I understand your concern, but you got nothing to worry about. It's gonna turn around, no problem. We went on that tour, man. I baked that thing every night. I mean, it was horrible. I tell you, it was so bad. And these were 5-week tours. I killed that thing for 5 weeks. It was so bad that I developed like scales all over my body. I looked like fish. I was wearing talk about somebody only wearing long sleeve shirts. And before I was going to leave the room, I would take like hand lotion and just like bathe my hands and hands, because then that made them a little bit less obvious, right? So man, I mean, like I was in bad shape, and I went to the doctor on that tour, and I said, I don't think I can, because we always tour with a doctor. I said, I don't think we can, I've always thought we should tour with a psychiatrist, but in fact we don't. We tour with a doctor. I went into him and I said, I don't think I can go on stage anymore unless you give me some of that enderal. I've got to try it. Because I don't think I can make myself go on stage. And so he gave me a bunch. So I started pumping enderal, and man, I was still going out there murdering this stuff. But what enderal does is it doesn't change what you feel in your head, but that confirmation that you get from your body that you're in deep trouble, you don't get it. I mean, you know, that bad feeling in your stomach or that bad feeling in your chest, it's not there. So your brain is saying, man, I'm screwed, and your body is not. That's all that enderal does. Enderal is the absence of a feeling. Enderal is not, it isn't a feeling, it's the absence of that, all that nerve-associated body feeling. All right. Wouldn't have made it through that tour without it, and I didn't figure out until 2 months later. I went from August to November not knowing what was going on. And then I finally figured it out. Now, like I say, I warm up now in a way where it's impossible for my lips not to be together. But so that was my first experience with enderal. And here was the deal. Once I could play again, well, I didn't feel the need, right? So I think what I tell people about enderal is this. Enderal breaks, in a way, the cycle of fear. Because I think had I gone through that 4 months feeling the full experience of being scared out of my mind to go on stage, that I'm not sure I would have recovered from that. But the fact that I could at least lessen the feelings I was able to get back to where I felt confident about going on stage. I'm not sure I would have gotten there without enderal. So that was 88, and I would tell you that since 88, I've used enderal periodically anytime I feel like I'm entering a cycle of fear. And ordinarily at this point, if I take it for a couple weeks, it destroys that cycle. Now I'm back on track. And so I think when people think about taking enderal, you hear quite often people say, I don't want to feel like I have to take a drug to go on stage for the rest of my life. You're not going to feel that way. You're going to feel that way until you start feeling better about your playing again, which you probably will. If you're like me, it's this kind of ride. But I would certainly say to anybody, I think saying to yourself, I just refuse to take drugs to help myself out, is foolhardy. And I think it's foolhardy for somebody that's auditioning, that's making no money. But I think it would be absolutely irresponsible, say for instance, for somebody who's got a family and 2 kids, and they're making a living in music, and now they're having trouble, and they're saying, I won't try this. Are you crazy? There's too much to lose. So, I would just say, don't make a lifetime commitment to anything. But to have that be something that you use when you have to, or you certainly try, I would encourage it myself.
Yeah.
So
it seems like, I mean, not to use a sports analogy, but you know, what you just described, you're using it to break the cycle so that you put your head back into a place of confidence. And you know, we've mentioned law of attraction earlier, but you get to the point where, yes, I do sound good, and I can reproduce this on a nightly basis, and you start to gain confidence like an athlete does, and suddenly they're back. So in that sense, I totally agree with you. I don't see how you cannot try it if that's the thing that's going to break the cycle for you.
Do you think if you said to one of these batters that's going through a slump, that's making millions of dollars a year, listen, take enderal for a couple of weeks because it'll help you, they'd say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Are you crazy? I mean, no, it's too much money. It's too. You know, the other thing I should mention is this. I think that we all get into the head that we should be 100% all the time. Nobody, I swear to God, nobody's going to think it's weird if a baseball player has a slump this year for a couple months and then comes out of it. They say, well, that's a normal part of a career. But musicians themselves seem to put such a burden on themselves that I must be 100% at all time or I am failing. Not going to happen. You know, we were talking earlier, you know, these guys that win the New York Marathon, that doesn't mean they win the Boston Marathon that year or the next marathon. You know, maybe they win a golfer. A golfer wins a couple tournaments a year. That means he's lost 38, but he's had a great year.
Yeah.
But musicians act like if I haven't played 40 perfect concerts, it's a crisis. I really try not to buy into that.
Yeah.
I try and buy into consistency of effort and sincere effort as opposed to consistency of result. I can't totally control the result. All I can do is control the effort going in.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more with you, Phil. It's really well said on your part. I know a lot of times when I've done jazz records and whatnot, and I've just played a solo that I was really disappointed in, and it took me years to get to the point of just saying to myself, you know what, that's what I had today, and it's not my favorite stuff, but you know, I gave it the best that I had, and it wasn't great, and hopefully, you know, in the future you're going to learn from that and gain from that, and I agree with you. It's like, you know, you can't. It's virtually impossible to play perfectly all the time. So as soon as we can kind of mentally accept that, I think it gets us out of that and enables us to get back on track quicker. Seems to me, you know.
Yeah.
So I appreciate all your words. I mean, it's incredibly good advice for all professionals and young people coming up, that this is what is part of the process. Well, Phil, thank you for all those thoughts, and I think the fact that you have the candor and the honesty to talk about it, we all appreciate it, because I think you're right. It's like a lot of people are not going to talk about this, but it should be talked about, and this is how you're going to get over the hump, is by talking about it and realizing that it's a reality for all of us. And anyway, thank you for talking about it. I just had a couple questions left, and I just wanted to touch on the fact that I've always been amazed that it's yourself, Phil Smith, and Joe Alessi. I consider the three finest principal brass players anywhere in the world. You guys all ended up in the same orchestra, roughly the same time period of your careers. I found it astounding, and I've enjoyed, and as have all brass fans have loved it for the past 30 years or so. And can you just talk a little bit about your relationship with Phil and Joe, how it's evolved over the years, and you know, maybe just what your guys' outlook on it might be?
God, man, you know, I'll tell you, you know, the thing that amazes me the most about the New York Philharmonic is that, like, if somebody says to me, you know, let's say somebody came in and said, okay, we're going to take a vote on, you know, somebody's going to come into this room and hand each of you $500, or they're not going to. Now, let's take a vote on it, and if you vote that they will, then they're going to come in and give you $500. So you think, well, surely people are going to vote to get the 500. So Phil, predict how this vote's going to turn out. I'll say, well, you know, I think they're going to vote for getting the $500. I don't seem to be able to ever guess how that vote's going to come out, no matter how obvious it seems, right? So when you say to me, what do you and Phil Smith and Joe Alessi and you know, my answer to that is, You know, I haven't been able to figure out what those guys have been thinking for like 30 years. I have no idea what's going on. When push
I didn't think that was going to be your answer.
Yeah,
So
no, when push comes to shove, I really don't know what those guys are thinking. I will tell you that in my opinion, I don't know whether they would agree with this or not. But I think we were all taught a rather odd thing, in my opinion. I haven't talked this over with them, so they might stone cold disagree with this. But I think we were all raised, every one of us was being raised, told that good was normal. And I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that's true. I think when something's good, that's almost unusual. That's exceptional. That's great. That's wonderful. That's something to be excited about. My father didn't view it that way. My father's view of it was that was just to be expected, that things would be good. And the only thing to be dealt with was when things were less than good. And if things were less than good, that meant that you hadn't met your responsibility. Well, I mean, I think that's I now think that's a rather negative motivation kind of thing. For instance, he truly felt that if there would be no desire inside of you for tomorrow to be better than today, unless you felt bad about today. But then when you got to tomorrow, you had to feel bad about tomorrow for it to be, so sort of a series of days where you had to feel bad for the next day to be good. Oh, that's a tough way to live. That's a tough way to live. So I had to revise on that, right? But I wouldn't, let me just say, I wouldn't be surprised to hear that Phil Smith and Joel Laskey both also feel that they were taught that good was normal and anything else was bad, abnormal, and they shared at least some responsibility for the fact that things weren't right. Because I think what I would say is that when things aren't right, we all feel a responsibility for the fact that it isn't, and we'd like to see that change, if only in service to the memory of our fathers. Well, Phil Smith's father is very nice; he's still alive, but Joe's father's dead, my father's dead, and I think, yeah, I think it's that feeling of, if things aren't going right, it's not the other guy's responsibility. It's your responsibility. If you just had to say one thing, I would say I think we all three feel that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really thoughtful answer. I mean, that's wow. Thank you. That's great. I admit, it's a great way to explain something and look at things, and certainly personal responsibility is huge in life and in playing. So the fact that all three of you share that, it's probably explains a lot without having to go any further. So, Phil, our last question, which I tend to end with this, and I think it's helpful because there's so many people who look up to you, myself included. I like to finish the interview just if you were to give one piece of advice to a young musician out there, or a young French horn player who wants to be an orchestra musician or dreams of becoming the next Phil Myers. If you could capsulize it down to one piece of advice, what would it be?
Quite easy. We touched on it before. And that is, I think you have to feel yourself driven by curiosity. Are you just simply interested in hearing that next record? Are you interested in hearing that next performance? I mean, if you're having to make yourself do it, or someone else is sort of putting the force on you to do it, I don't think in the long term that's going to work out. You know, my mother made me practice the piano. My father was supposed to be in charge of the horn, and he never said anything to me about practicing. And I think that was good. It was strictly my curiosity about it. I mean, so I would say that just ask yourself at any given stage, is this something I really want to do? And is this something that, like, I can almost not do anything else because I'm just so darn curious about this? We had a guy in our orchestra that got into trouble. and ended up having to resign. Got into trouble playing. He was having trouble playing, so he ended up having to resign. And he said to me, my problem is I can't find anything else I'm passionate about like I was about this, which was why he had succeeded in the first place, because he was just so, he was like the most passionate about it. And so I would say monitor that. And then the only other thing I'd say is this. It would not occur to anybody to learn French without ever hearing anybody else speak French. And, or you know, you wouldn't say, yeah, I'm going to learn German, but I don't want to hear everybody speak it. No, you just wouldn't think that, right?
Yeah.
But I deal with a tremendous amount of students that think that they have nothing to gain by going to hear a performance or a concert. Wow. And to me, this is would be just as crazy. I want to do music, but I never want to hear it. Because I know for myself, especially with records, I ordinarily had 15, 16 records of the same piece. And I would sit there and figure out which one I liked the best and why. And then just, here's my final thing. When I came here, I'd never played first horn on Brahms' First Symphony. And there's a big solo at the end of it, and I just didn't know how I was going to play it. I didn't trust my own concept of that at age 30. I thought maybe I'll go in and do something that sounds really stupid, and I shouldn't be doing that because I'm working here. So I had 15 records of that piece, and I sat down and I just listened to 15 guys play that, and absolutely just stone cold copied the one I liked the best. That was just how I started out. And you know, I find a lot of students now, they're not going to concerts, so they're just sort of like going by what they think. I wasn't willing to take that approach when I was 30.
Yeah.
I can't imagine taking that approach when I'm 20.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. I would say go to concerts and follow your curiosity. Those are.
Phil, it's great advice, and you know, I just want to thank you, for taking time out of your schedule, and I want to thank you for your honesty and openness and emotion that you put in everything. You put it in a conversation, you put it in the French horn, and really appreciate it. Of course, we appreciate the years of incredible playing and inspiration that you've given us all. And I hope everybody got a lot out of this today. I was looking forward to talking to Phil today, and I know I got a ton out of hearing all the things he had to say. So, Phil, thank you for a great interview. Hope you all enjoyed it, and we will see you next time on Bone2Pick.